Welcome back to Edge Concepts. In case you're new to this channel, my name is Aluko. Today I'll be doing something different from the usual frame of motion and React.js animations. So I'll be doing a file upload using Node.js with the multer middleware. This is a back-end functionality, and I'm going to try doing this in details to make you get to understand how to use multer. Enough of introduction, let's move to coding. I'll start by creating an empty folder in my desktop. This is going to contain our project. So I'll create a folder here and name it file upload. Then I'm going to open this in Visual Studio Code editor. So I'll simply drag this and drop inside the editor. So the next thing I'll do is to initialize a new project here. I'll open the integrated terminal. And type npm init. So this is going to create the package.json, and later we shall install some dependencies. So there we have it. And then I'll create a file that is going to contain all the code for this particular project. So I'll create app.js. So before I start writing code, I need to install Express dependency to easily create our server. Then I'll also need to install some dependency here, known as a Nodemon, that is going to watch the changes that we make in the server or this back-end code. Whenever we make the changes, it will be restarting our server so that we don't need to restart the server manually every other time we make the changes. So I have Express installed here. So the next one is Nodemon. Of course, I need to type npm install Nodemon, but I'm installing it as a dev dependency. So to do so, I need to add hyphen capital D. As this is being installed, we can start creating our server. First, I need to import Express dependency or Express module here. I'll assign it to a constant known as Express, then require Express. Like that. Then I will call it here and assign it to a constant known as application or app. The next thing is to create the endpoint. I'm going to create the port that the server is going to listen to. So that is going to be app.listen. This time I'm going to use 5000. Then we have a callback function that says that if everything is working, then this should be returned. I'm just going to console log server working. So let's save the changes. Let me check if the Express is Nodemon has been installed. So I need to add a script here with a key of start. then this will have a property of we're going to set Nodemon to be watching this app.js and the changes that we make to our application. So it should be Nodemon app.js. This should be double quotes. Just make these changes like that. Then this one here should be double quote. So let's make the changes and start our server or run our server by typing npm start. Yeah, our server is running. You can see the console log is there. So we shall now start implementing the file upload. To do that, first we need to install multer, which is the middleware that we are going to use help us achieve the purpose. So first I'm going to stop my server, and then I will do npm install multer like that. So let's just wait for it to get installed. Yeah, there we have it. So we can import this module here. Then I'll assign it to a constant known as multer. Then require multer. Then we are going to create the functionality, the function that is going to represent our multer application, because later we are going to pass this function as a middleware in the route that we are going to access from the browser. But for this particular tutorial, I'll be working with the Postman. So maybe before I work on the file upload, I need to create a route so that we can make the HTTP requests to this route. I'll start with the get first just to test it out, and this is going to be homepage. For this project, we are only going to have one route, so we shall have a function and we pass a request object and the response object. Then for now, what I want to return is a response that says that everything is fine. So res.send everything is fine. That. Then I'll test this one out, but first I need to run the server by typing npm start. There is some error. The error is here because we are using the app before initializing it, so our route should fall below that. So let's save the changes. So everything is fine. Let's go to Postman and add a new request here, and it's going to be a get request, and we are visiting localhost 5000. Let's send this. There you get our response, everything is fine. So we shall now start working on a multer. Now there are several things that you need to take into consideration when you're accepting uploads from users. So when you're uploading files to your server, first we need to create a folder that is going to contain our files. For this particular project we shall be working with images. So I'll create a folder here known as images, and we are going to upload our images in this folder. So first we need to consider where we're going to store the images. We have already done that, created the folder. Then we also need to work on giving the image that we are transferring or uploading here a unique name, because our users might be having different images having the same names, and if all these images are uploaded here, they'll be overriding each other. Now multer function accepts an object, and this object is going to have several properties. But for this particular project, we are going to deal with the three properties here, main properties. One property is going to help us to, push the file to the images folder. Then the other one is going to filter or validate our file so that we are only able to upload files with the specific extensions. Then the other one is going to help us limit the size of files that we are uploading into our server. So we are going to work with the three options. So we are going to create our functionality here. I'm going to call it uploader, and it's going to call the multer that we initialized here, or we did imported there. So I've said that this multer will accept an object, and this object is going to have three properties. The first one is going to be storage, this one here. Then the other one is going to be file filter. Then the other one is going to be limit, to limit the size of the files to be stored there. So we are going to work on these properties one by one. That's why I've put them in different lines so that I'll be able to comment them out like that. So for the storage, I'll create a function here, not a function but a constant that is going to to contain the value that we are going to pass here in this storage property. So let me just create a constant and call it storage. Now multer has a method known as disk storage, and this method accepts also an object with two properties. The first property is going to point to the folder where we are going to store the images, and the other one is going to determine the name that we are going to give our file. So that method is known as a disk storage, and I've said that it accepts an object with two properties. The first one is known as the destination. This one is going to point to the folder we are going to send our files, and the other one is the file name, which is going to give our files the name that being stored. So let me comment out this, or let me just work out the way they are. So the destination is a function that accepts three parameters here. The first one is going to be the request object. Then we have a file which is also going to be an object, and we have the callback function. Let me use an arrow function here. Then it calls the callback function immediately here, and this callback function we shall pass an error which is null, set it to null. Then the next thing is to point to the folder where we are going to store our files. I have the folder here in the same level as my app.js, so it's going to be that / images, just like that. Let's have a comma here. Then the file name is also going to be a function. It's almost the same as this one here. Let me just copy it. So for the file name is going to return a null error, this callback function here, but the name is going to be the second parameter. For this case, we are going to access the object, which is the file, and it has several properties, and one of the properties is the original file name. This doesn't need to be a string. So file dot several properties here. We are interested with the original file name. This is going to be the property, I mean the name of the file, the name of the file, or the name the file comes with when it is initially uploaded into our server. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to pass this storage property as a value for my storage property in multer. So it is the storage constant or variable. In that, then save the changes. Then we shall pass our middleware as the parameter here. Our middleware, I named it upload. In that, then we also need to specify the number of files that we accept from the request. We have several types of or methods that we can use. We can accept either as multiple files, or we can accept a single file. For this case, we are going to accept a single file, and there is a method for multer known as single. So multer.single, we can do it up here. Where is it? Where we have initialized the multer here, or called the multer, we can just append .this method, which is single. This one we pass a string here, and this string specifies the field name that is going to bring the file, or it's going to send the file. I'm going to have a field name known as upload, or an input known as upload. Then I'm going to change this to a post request so that we shall be able to send the information. So let's save these changes. Then we shall go to Postman and make a post request. Then we need to have the information to send here in the body. I'm going to use a form data. Then for the type of input, I'm going to use a file input because we are dealing with files. Then I'll give it a name, which is upload. Then I'll select a file here. I have several files in my PC. Then I send it. So when I send this, there is no such directory. No such directory, because which means that there is some typing error here. So we have images, and what have we specified? It should be images. I have a spelling error here, and I'm still repeating the same. Images, and that. So let's repeat this and see what we get. There we have our response. Everything is fine. And when you come to this folder here, there you see the image, but our image is being sent with its original name, so we need to find a way of giving this a unique name. I'm going to use a date. So I'll create a constant here and give it a name of date. Then I'm going to initialize the date object here, like that. And I'm going to append or prefix time, which is date dot get time. Then we call it that method. Then we append it to that, so that there'll be no clashing of names. Let's send this again. Then check our folder. There we have it. If we repeat the process, check it out. You see we have several files here. So the file upload process is working very well. Maybe I'll try another method of accepting several files from different file fields so that we can have several file fields. Let's just search for multer middleware here and see what we have as the guideline. Shall visit this first URL so you can see how you're supposed to do the installation, then the usage. If you're sending data from forms, your form should have the enc type of a multiparty stroke form data. If not, you don't specify that, then it's not going to work. Then let's look at the multer options, and then we have the way of storing. We have several options. We have single, the one I've used. We have an array, that is if the input is having a property of multiple files. Then we have fields, that is if we are sending files from several inputs. So what we are supposed to do is to use this .fields method. Then the fields we pass here should be an array of objects, and the objects should have a name and a maximum count, that is the maximum number of files per field. So you'll come to where we have used .single and replace it with the .fields, which is which part here, the multer upload, this section here. So let's change this to fields and we pass our array there. I've just copied what they have used. So I'm going to have two fields named avatar and gallery in my postman. So first I'm going to delete this so that we confirm that it's actually working. So go back to postman. You're going to have a field name of avatar. You're also going to have another field name. Let me just minimize this. You're working with the file. Let's have gallery here. Then select a file. I have another file here known as home. You can just work with any image. Then we send this information and see what we are going to have. There we have our response. Then when you come here, we have two files, you see. We have user.png and home.png. Good. So I'm going to go back to single files so that we start working on validating the files, the extensions that we accept in our server. So here we pass the field name or the input name, which is upload. Like that, make the changes, then we come back to postman. We're going to cancel that and change this back to upload. So let's start working on file validation very fast. When you visit the website and you navigate to the validation section, which is the file filter property of the object that is being accepted by a multer as a parameter. So it says that we set this to a function to control which files should be uploaded and which ones should be skipped. So the function should look like this. So let me copy this function and I'll make a few changes. Our property number 2 is here. So I'm going to uncomment this and assign this to a function. I can assign a constant here known as a file filter and work it out outside the multer functionality and just assign it here, but for this case let me just do it inside here. Then I'll change this to an arrow function because I like working with the arrow functions. So I'll start doing my validations. It's saying that let me return this. The function should call this callback function, which we pass as a parameter. Then we should reject the files by setting some parameters inside our callback function that or passing these two parameters. One is going to be an error which we set to null. Then we shall have a second parameter as a boolean. So if we reject the file, we shall pass a false boolean, or if we accept the file, we shall pass true. So I'll start by accepting the files. So I'll have an if statement here, and what I want to do is to access the file that I'm sending, which is an object, of course, and this object has several properties. One of the properties is the MIME type. This MIME type gives us access to the extension of the file. So if file.mime type is going to be equal to this type of MIME type, that is file stroke extension, which is going to be PNG. Let me start with PNG, or let me have another type of an image here, or is written like this: file stroke extension is a JPG, or file.extension or file extension is a JPEG. For now, this is what we are going to have. Then I will want to accept or pass the file. So to pass the file, we call this callback function and set it to true. But if it's false, we reject by passing or calling this callback function and passing a false boolean. Let me delete this, we don't need it. So make the changes. So what I'm going to do is to have this in different lines so that I should be able to comment out some parts in that. For now, I'm only going to accept PNGs, so let me comment out that. Yeah, so I'm only going to accept a PNG image. So first I'll also need to delete this so that we confirm if this is actually working. So let me delete all the images. Then we go to Postman and send this image. It has an extension of JPG, which means that it should not be uploaded. So when we send this, it says that everything is fine. But if we visit the images folder, you can see we have nothing. See that? So the validation is working. But if we uncomment this and send the request again, everything is fine and we have our image there. Now we're only doing the validation, but we are not sending the right message to the user. We are not telling the user if this kind of a file is allowed or not, is accepted or it's not accepted. So multer is not providing us with how we can do that. It's not telling us how we can send the error message or inform the user that certain types of files are not allowed to be uploaded. So we are going to do it ourselves, and I'm just going to show you that in a moment. Let me make these changes first. Yeah. So when you look at this request object, it is available here in a multer, but it's also available. It's available in a file filter, but it's also available in our route, which is this upload, this request object. It's available in both of them. So we can access it in our multer middleware, or we can access it just within our route. So what we are going to do is where we are doing the validation, this section where we are going to block the file from being uploaded, we are going to create an object here. And inside this object, we are going to pass an error, or we are going to create an error and attach it to this request object. It's just a property, it's not even an error. We are just going to attach a property to our request object. And the property that I want to attach here, it's going to be request. Let's give it a name. You can give it any name. I'll give it a name of file validation error, like that. Then I'll equate this to a message that I want to send back to the user. Let me say that this type of file is not allowed, but you can send any message that you feel like sending to the user, like that. Then let's go back to the website and see how we can do the error handling. It's here. When encountering an error, multer will delegate the error to Express, or if you want to catch the error specifically from multer, you can call the middleware function by yourself. So instead of passing the middleware function here as a parameter, we pass it inside, or we call it the function ourselves inside our route. So I'm going to remove this and copy this function here. So this function, then put that function there. I also use the same name, which is uploader, and that is the same name that the function is having. So if there is an instance of multer error, what we want is just to send this error to the user. So res.send message to the user, and the message I want to send is just the error itself. Then we also want to check this error, or the message that we attached, or the property that we attached to our request object, which is file validation error. So if request.validation error is available, it is the name that I gave. File validation error is available. That's the name that I gave to my property. If this one is available, then I want to return that as a response to the user. So return this request.file validation error. Let's just do this the right way. Return res.send copy this and put it there, like that. I think that is the right way. Good. So right now we are doing the validation. I don't have anything in the images, and we only accept PNG, and what we are sending is a JPG. So let me do that, saying that everything is fine. Really, I know the reason why it's doing that. what we want to do is that if everything is fine now, if everything is fine, because we have the else and the if else, let's now have the else. So copy this and have it here as our final. Make the changes, then send the request. Good. This type of file is not allowed, you can see that. And if you go to the images, you can see that no image has been uploaded at all. It's not there. Maybe let's repeat it. We get a message, this type of file is not allowed. And when we go to the images, there's nothing like that. But now if we allow all types of images that we have stated here and try to send this, we shall get a different type of message, which is everything is working fine. And if you check, there we have our image, which means the validation is working and the right error is being sent to the user, or a right message is being sent to the user. So the next thing I want to do is to work on property number 3, which is going to limit the size of files that we are going to send. And if we visit the website again, we have the limits here. So a limit property is an object specifying the size limits of the files. So it's going to have several properties or optional properties. So what we need to do is to pass an object here in our limit property, property number 3, and comment it. And let's have an object. I'm only going to try out one property or one option here, the file size. So let me copy it. So the file size is for multiple forms. The maximum size of file. This one is going to specify the maximum size of the file that you're going to send in bytes. And the default value is going to be infinite or infinity. So we are going to have our object with the property of file size, and we are going to specify the limit of the file size as 30,000 bits, like that. So let's go to Postman and check the size of the file that we are going to upload. For example, I have this home.png. Let me just check the size. So the property is 798 bytes. 798 bytes. But we are only setting our file size to be 40,000 bytes. So this is 798,720 bytes. So let's check out. First we cancel this, then we accept that, then we open it. There we have our file. Then let's send it. Yeah, we get an error here. What is the error? Luckily for this file limit, multer is going to send us an object which contains different messages or different values. One is the type of the error, which is a multer error. The other one is the message, which is the file is too large. The code is a limit, and the field that is causing an issue is the upload. You can see that. So we can even catch that error. I mean, we can specify the message by accessing error.message. If we come to this validation or the multer function that we are passing into our route, which is upload here, we can specify that we want the error.message, which is this one here, then save the changes. Good. So that if we come to Postman and send this file, which is larger than 40,000 kilobytes, we get a message that the file is too large. Yeah, so I think everything is working as I planned and as expected. And maybe next time or in the near future, I'll be doing this with the front-end framework or library, for example, React, so that we shall have a user interface sending this information into the server. Then I'll also be able to save this information into the database. I can use SQL or MongoDB. Then I think I'll probably do a CRUD app or a CRUD application here using React and Node.js, and this is going to have a profile image so that we shall also be able to practice this file upload. Thank you very much for your time. In case you have not subscribed to this channel, please do so. Do share this video so that we have more viewers and subscribers to support the channel. Thank you so much for your time. You have a great time. See you next time.